Hey guys, welcome back to another Maledictor update. Before we get started, since the game is now released in early access on Steam and purchasable, I should mention for anybody who might be coming into these videos off of Steam that these are not necessarily patch notes and these are not necessarily an indication that there's going to be a patch soon. This is more to update on what is being done in the game, so these will eventually make it into patch notes. Some of these actually already have been in a patch, so some of this is old news for you if you've played the game. But this is mainly to show that the game is being developed and to kind of explain some of the changes that are being made and just the general development process. So that way, you know that if you bought this game on Steam, that it's not going to be a game that's just sitting there in your inventory. It is actually being actively developed, and you can, even if you don't see it in patches, because I want patches to be meaningful. If you don't see patches coming out fairly regularly, like once a month or something, you still can see that it's being worked on, and you know that it's not just going to be another game that is released into early access on Steam and just dies. So, with that out of the way, let's get on into this. So the first half of this has actually been released in a patch, so some of these aren't going to really be news for you if you have bought the game, but still good to go over them and to explain them. And the ones that aren't in a patch will be in a patch later. So right now, added more achievements. Pretty self-explanatory. Achievements are nice. I want to make sure that I'm not putting too many into the game just yet. For one reason, we're limited in how many achievements we can put into the game right now. We're maxed out at 100. I don't think we'll ever get over 100, even when we're not capped on it. But still, it's good to be a little conservative and then start building up the achievements as we go. Because you want achievements to at least mean something, and you don't want them to be popping up all the time. So next, we fixed a weapon select bug. That was a problem with the second submachine gun and shotgun not appearing in the weapon select menu. That's fixed, so they do now. Next, improved menu navigation. That's self-explanatory. Next, improved weapon select. And this was mostly, if we actually go into, well, let's go into our AI testing level. This is basically just another dev room. We go into here and we open up our weapon select menu. You can see that our mouse automatically selects the weapon that we have selected. Move it, don't select a new one. The mouse is right back over the shotgun, so that makes it a little bit more convenient to be able to tell what gun you have out, or like what's going to be around your mouse. So it makes it a lot faster and more intuitive to switch weapons. Next, added scrolling sprites, which you can see in this level. I just start up the level. You can't see it quite right now, but if I start up the level, you can see that the trees are moving by. And that is because this boat actually does not move. This boat is completely stationary, and it's everything else that's moving around it. So things like these cattails and the trees and the bushes. I did have lily pads, but lily pads actually looked really strange. It actually looked like they were floating over the water, even though they were on the surface. Kind of an optical illusion sort of thing, but yeah. But yeah, so everything else moves around. So that gives some options for things that could be passing by that aren't modeled. So you can get effects like this for a moving level, or you can have things pass by in the background, which I'm kind of excited to be able to use that a little bit. So we'll be getting some more use out of the scrolling sprites as we go. Next, release the game in early access. It's one of those things that's kind of old news for you if you're coming off of Steam, but yes, this was a big stage for Maledictor. It took about 2 years to get here, and finally, people are able to purchase the game. Feedback has been very good so far. You look at our store page here. Not a huge amount of reviews in so far, but that's kind of to be expected. Only a very, very small percentage of people on Steam actually leave a review for games, which, if you're watching this and you own the game, if you enjoyed the game, feel free to leave a review. If you did not enjoy the game, then feel free to troll all your friends by leaving a positive review and tricking them into thinking you like the game. They'll love it. Anyway. Yeah, so you can now purchase the game on Steam. Hooray. Next, removed another emitter. Yep. The emitters are the 3D effects that I had bought and was kind of using as placeholders. I stopped using the emitters because they had frame rate issues, like some really bad frame rate issues for some of them. And so I switched over to sprite-based effects, which are just about free for all intents and purposes in terms of frame rate usage. So, got rid of that. So, at this point, it's basically a tradition that just about every month I find another emitter, get rid of it, and go, oh, okay, now I have them all done. So, this time, for sure, we've got them all gone. Until the next time. Next, corrected Russian localization. That's just a small, minor correction for grammar. So, got that in there and fixed. Next, added clarity to multi-switches. Go into E2M1. So a lot of people, this is one of the things that people were able to figure out, but it tripped people up relatively frequently. So this is just, you know, it didn't like stop anybody from finishing the level. They figured it out eventually, but this way it kind of takes a lot of the confusion away. Multi-switches are basically one switch that controls multiple doors. Then you switch it and it opens like door A, and then you switch it again and it closes door A and opens door B. This was kind of confusing some people because they thought it was just a single switch. So I added these little light indicators beneath it so that you can tell which group it's on. And that way you know that it has multiple groups assigned to it. So, this way it will actually... I'm gonna get killed pretty much as soon as I spawn in here. When you spawn in... Oh, I didn't quite get the opportunity to use it, but you can see it lights up the switch groups based on what you have active. So that way you kind of know that it is assigned to multiple groups. Next. Fixed E2M1 attic window being breakable. That's a pretty simple one. There's a window that you could break that I didn't think you should, so fixed it. Moved an E2M5 enemy spawn trigger to make more sense. There was a point where you could clearly see a big area of the map that didn't have any enemies. Like, you could see it through a window, and then you would walk back into another area of the map, and then it would spawn all the enemies in that area that you had just seen had nobody in it. So now it makes a lot more sense. It spawns enemies into an area before you can see it the first time. So it makes much more sense. Next, destructibles will no longer bleed. That was a... We'll be getting it kind of back into this area, but it's basically the weapon code. There was an area where it got a little disjointed so that if you could damage something, it would bleed, regardless of whether it was something that should bleed or not. Now that's fixed. A resized menu element. I know what that is. I forgot. I kept that intentionally vague because that was basically the first the first complaint from one of my friends about something. It was very minor, so I decided to leave that note very vague because it fixed the problem that he reported, and unless you know to look for it, you will never find it, pretty much. So I'll just leave that vague. Next, E2M1 now has secrets. Yeah, whoops. I forgot to put secrets into the level. Usually, secrets are kind of what I add in last to a level, so this way now it has some secrets added into it, and I even expanded some areas of it just to be able to put some secrets in. So now the secret parts of it, when you find it, will count as a secret, and there's also a little extra. Let's see. Next, restarting too fast no longer makes you stay dead. This was the cause of the first hotfix of the game. There was a bug where if you died and then restarted immediately while you were still in the dying process, then it would still count you as being dead, and you would be invisible to all the enemies, and sometimes if you would left click, then it would restart the level. Well, no, it would kill you. That's what it would do. It would kill you again. Yeah. So I fixed that. Fixed the order of how things worked so that now it prioritizes the correct things. So that was a major game-breaking bug. And fortunately, I got that fixed, I believe, on the first day. So, fortunately, I got that fixed quick. No longer an issue. Fixed a bug preventing achievements from working. Yep, that was actually a bug with Unreal, rather than a bug with the game. Achievements were all set up correctly, and it was a very confusing thing. I essentially had to reinstall the Unreal Engine editor to make that work, because it was throwing an error and failing packaging with the online subsystems plugin. If that was enabled, then it would prevent it from packaging. So I had to go in and reinstall the engine so that it would actually work. So now achievements work. That was another bug that got fixed very early on. And for another bug that got fixed early on, added dead zones to help controllers with stick drift. So this was a weird one to track down. Basically, the game... So, Epic put in default level dead zones for controller inputs, but they don't enable them by default. So, the controllers that I use all have what's called Hall effect sticks. They're basically magnetic sensors on the sticks so that you can't get stick drift. With normal controllers that all the major companies use, they use crappier sensors that are physical sensors that essentially just kind of like use a rubber band. And, you know, it's literally saving them pennies per controller, which is kind of pathetic that they all do it. And so that's why a lot of modern controllers are notorious for having stick drift. And stick drift essentially makes it so that the sticks are constantly getting pulled to one side. So you're always getting a constant input on your controllers. So I never noticed that that was a problem with the game when I was testing it with my controllers, because not all of them, but most of my controllers have Hall effect sensors. So they can't get stick drift at all. And then I even tested it on some other normal controllers that just didn't have stick drift. But when I submitted the game to Steam for them to review the controller options, they actually said that they basically failed it because they said that they were constantly getting inputs to the side. So, unfortunately, that means that Steam actually tests controller functionality with controllers that are not only able to get stick drift, but they apparently did not recognize that their problem was being caused by stick drift, which, you know, that's unfortunate. I would kind of expect them to know better. But anyway, I had controller support built into the game still, and when I released the game, some people were asking about controllers, and I even had somebody, one of the first people who played through the game, play through it on a Steam Deck, which uses control sticks, but I believe the Steam Deck has Hall effect sensors, so they didn't have any problem with it. So when I got somebody explaining the same thing that the Steam guys did, I was kind of at a loss, but fortunately I managed to figure that out, that it was stick drift that was causing that problem. So, unfortunately, that means that if you had that problem before, your controller has stick drift. And that might not be an issue yet. It has a certain amount of it. I set up dead zones. I enabled dead zones for the controller inputs so that now you can have stick drift up to a certain amount and it'll filter that out. But that does also mean that if you had that problem before, then your controllers have stick drift. And you really should try to look into getting a controller with Hall effect sensors. Fortunately, they're pretty cheap. They're actually... That's kind of... The controller market is kind of a racket, really. You really should not be... We're actually at a point where you should not be buying first-party controllers because those are actually lower quality than third-party. And third-party controllers are higher quality and cheaper. So look up controllers with Hall effect sensors, and you will be able to find good ones that are cheaper than first-party controllers, and you will never get stick drift with them. So I use 8-bit dough for mine for a little recommendation there. But yeah, so that's kind of a long-winded explanation of this whole reason for dead zones. So yeah, you can have a certain amount of stick drift now with Maledictor, and it will filter it out, but eventually your controllers will develop stick drift, and you'll run into that problem. It'll just it'll be a lot more noticeable when you get to that point, because you'll probably start seeing it in other games as well. Next, increase maximum volume levels. Some people who just thought that the game was a little quiet, and different audio systems can change volume levels a lot. So I just increased max volume levels. If you need the game to be a little bit louder than 200%, then you can get that now. Progress on E2M1. This is just general progress. I think when I added that note, I maybe had just finished setting up the overall shape of the level. Now I'm filling out the level a lot more with interiors and sprites and models, and trying to set up the flow of the level some. I'm just about done with E2M1, which is nice. I kind of wanted to have it done before this point, but, things come up. So I've been just still working on this, and it's coming along. I'm liking it so far. And I'm feeling good about episode 2 already. So that's great. Yep. We'll be getting this finished up very soon. So the next month's video, E2M1 will definitely be done, and I will have started on E2M2. The nice thing now about having episode 1 done is that now it used to take me about a week to get the arcade games put in, because I would have to come up with the idea for the arcade game, have to code it, have to model it, have to make the sprites for it, and put it all together. Now I've got all of that done, so really the only thing that I need to do for levels in terms of non-level design things is I need to just make a radio show for each level. That takes maybe a day or 2 or 3 days, really. So I'm saving a week of development. So it's, considering that was 7 levels for 7 arcade games, saving 7 weeks of development time on just the levels in general from not having to make those arcade games anymore. Each level will have an arcade game in it, but it's a repeat, which I don't think is too much of an issue. People have been really liking the arcade games, some more than others. You know, there's not a whole lot of love for Cannon Shot right now, and I can appreciate that. It's hard, but you know, I'm sure that Cannon Shot will develop its own niche community soon enough. Next, added an icon to Twitch TV, so if you stream the game, now you will actually have the Maledictor logo pop up on the game category. Small victories there. Next, small additions to E2M1. This is already in the game. I basically just changed up the layout of the house interior for E2M1, and also I believe added some more sprites around there, here and there, just to decorate it a little more. Next, more sprites. Speaking of sprites, the tradition continues. More sprites in every update. It is just a never-ending amount of sprites necessary. Gosh. It's getting hard to think of the sprites that I need, but I need way more. Always need more. Next, made burning and bleeding effects more noticeable. That's really just a scale thing. So I made them a little larger so you can see them easier. Because some people were having trouble noticing that they had that certain enemies had the bleed or burn damage over time effect on them. So now I just made the effects more noticeable. So they feel a lot better now. Next, fixed the bowling game bug. The bowling game's 10th frame was wonky. So I went in and I really had to kind of redesign the 10th frame code. So I've got code specifically for the 10th frame. So now it seems to work better. And I also added in a little safety mechanism for it, because somebody had the bowling game get stuck. And most games have a failsafe in it, but the bowling game didn't. Now it does. So if the bowling game gets kind of stuck, just wait. I think it's 20 or 30 seconds, and it'll cycle out. Next, fixed TV collision bug. You could run into the TV when you weren't supposed to. That's fixed. Fixed an adrenaline bug with new weapons. So with the new weapons, that's the second pistol, the second submachine gun, and the second shotgun. If you healed with an adrenaline, it actually didn't know what to do after that, because I forgot that code existed. So I went in and fixed that, and left myself a note, if I add more weapons into the game, to make sure that I go and fix that. And, I expand out the adrenaline code a little bit. Next, door collision bug fixed. That was mainly that actually connects with our next point. Added a new collision channel. There was a problem where certain doors, their collision channel would kind of change, and that could have it to where Molotovs or IEDs would hit the interaction collision box. So if you look at this door here, all these doors, you see this little box. That's where you have to be standing in order to interact with the door. So that little box should only ever interact with the player and should just ignore everything else. But it could happen to where your Molotovs or your IEDs would hit that box and bounce off of it or just explode. So now I added a new collision channel that is its own channel that ignores pretty much everything except for the player and is only ever used for these interaction boxes. So that will save a lot of headache. Just having that channel as its own thing. Next, fixed audio ducking. And there was a problem with some audio ducking on everything, really. Anything that would duck the audio, so like radio shows and the arcade games. The audio ducking was functional in the editor, but would not work in the packaged game, which was making it so that people were having a lot of trouble hearing the radio shows. And also, it was very, very difficult to kind of play the arcade games because you'd have the levels music track playing and then the music from the arcade game. And that was one of those things that was working in testing, but in the packaged build was just breaking for some reason. I don't know why. I still don't know why. But I basically went in and I hard-coded my own audio ducking into it with my own system that works just fine. Hooray, the audio ducking, that's a big one, so I'm glad to have that in there. Fixed radio occlusion. Another thing that was causing people to have trouble hearing the radio shows was that for some reason, the audio was coming through being occluded right off the bat. And occlusion is basically if you hear a sound and then you walk around a corner so that it's kind of like playing through the wall, it would muffle it and make it harder to hear. Yeah, so that was happening right off the bat with the radio shows. Don't know why, but I got that fixed so that now no longer happens. So now it's a lot easier. Between the audio ducking and the occlusion setting being fixed, that makes it a lot easier to hear the radio shows now. Next, restructured weapon firing code. Let me actually pull that up. To our player weapon base code here and go into here. So you can see our firing weapon code stuff here. This all used to be in one big, like this, and this used to be in one big lump right here. And that made it to where it could be very, very difficult to add anything or change anything or add any nuance to it. So now what I did, and this is kind of like the reason why destructible objects like, plates or clocks would bleed. Sounds very strange, but anyway. So now I broke everything down into its own section and am able, it still looks like a mess. There's just kind of no helping this. But I broke everything down into its own section so that I can add complexities where I need to, and I can add exceptions where I need to. And also, I didn't know it, but I'm assuming that certain points, like these pins that you drag these lines out of and connect things to each other with. I did not know it, but I think it apparently has a limit to how many things it can be connected to. Like any one point. So you kind of have to spread it out a little bit. Because when I would go in and start trying to fix this, I would notice that some of these pins would get just unpinned. So I'd be fixing something and things would just constantly break. So now that should hopefully be a lot better. And ideally, that on paper, that's one of those things that's on paper, it should make shooting your gun more efficient in terms of how the code runs. Realistically, you're probably not going to notice it, but on paper, it runs better. So, at least it doesn't run worse, even on paper. So, great. Next, increased blood impact size on the Episode 1 boss. A lot of people were having trouble telling if they were hurting the boss or not, because he's got a lot of health. So they were shooting him a whole bunch, and they couldn't quite tell if they were causing damage or not. Now, because I restructured the weapon firing code, I was able to increase the size of the blood impacts on him. So that now you can see a lot easier that you're dealing damage to him. The next, more models and more materials. And you are looking at a lot of those in this level. Or including the more sprites, more models, more materials. Just a lot of things being added into the game here. And then fixed a TV audio bug. It was a weird problem with the attenuation, where the attenuation would, if you spawned inside of the attenuation zone, and attenuation is just like volume fading out with distance. If you spawned within the fade distance, then TVs would sound just fine with the static. But then if you left and came back, it would apply the attenuation settings twice. And so it would be really, really quiet and you couldn't hear anything. So, yeah. I fixed that. So now it will always be consistent. Oh, hooray. Ending strong with that one. So that is it for this month. That's quite a bit. As I said, patches, so like some of these are already in the game. Some of them are going to be in a future patch. I'm not planning on patching the game super frequently just because I want patches to be meaningful and actually have big changes. I want you to be able to notice the patches. Unless there is something that I consider game breaking or kind of a major problem, like, Molotovs hitting the door interaction box, or, the controller issues, or the restarting it too soon after dying thing, making you respawn and having everyone think that you're dead. Unless it's something like that, then it's going to be, these will be showing up in major patches. The way that it is that if I hotfix something, then it'll include all the other changes. So that's how you wind up with kind of like smaller patches from here. But anyway, I believe I've gotten most of the, I've gotten all the bugs that I'm aware of fixed. And so I'm planning on having a patch in October, because there's going to be a big sale for the game. It's going to be with the big Halloween event on Steam. So I want there to be a patch for that. But for this month, probably not going to get a patch. I'm just going to be working on, I'm going to finish out E2M1, going to work on E2M2, and I'm also going to go back and kind of touch up some of the other levels in Episode 1 so that you can have that, some visual changes that you can notice. Maybe some layouts here and there, it just depends. But yeah. That is it for this month. I will be back on next month for the changes, for, progress updates, whatever. And, yep. Thank you again for everybody who has bought the game, for people who have played it and enjoyed it and left a review for it. I really appreciate that as well. For for people who have reported bugs. It's unfortunate news for sure whenever I get a bug report in, but it's a lot better to have the bugs reported and fixed rather than have nobody mention the bugs and then just have somebody buy the game and run into a major game-breaking issue. So, a lot better to get those bug reports in than not. And, of course, for people who have recommended the game, I really appreciate that. I've got some people who have reached out for Steam keys to review the game with. So I appreciate that as well. Feedback's been really good on the game. A lot of the people, unfortunately, who wishlisted the game were not made aware that it is even released. So, the December event, the December sale for October, for Halloween, that is going to kind of be like a second launch, I think, as people will get notifications about that. So, this has been kind of just a little soft launch so I can get all these fixes in. So I do really appreciate everyone who has been supporting the game so far. That's been really huge, so thank you very much. And I will be back next month for another long-winded explanation of what I've been doing for the last month. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Have a good one.